We all take heart when we hear a good conversion story. And such stories are particularly encouraging when it concerns a once grievous sinner or a once upon a time hardened atheist. So when we hear the parable of the prodigal son, it's quite likely that we assume that the principal person of interest is the younger son. You know, the one who rebels against his father, the one who thinks freedom is found in carefree spending, promiscuity, and debauchery. But on this Laetare Rejoicing Sunday, I invite you to focus your attention on the elder son, who I think we tend to overlook. Though it's his experience that's perhaps more relevant to us who would consider themselves committed Catholics. When we hear about the elder son, we might assume he never really needed the Father's mercy. We are told he is someone who's always remained in the Father's house. So you could think of him as someone who's been to Sunday Mass ever since they were young and have never missed a Sunday Mass. Moreover, we're told by his own admission that he slaved for the Father and never once disobeyed his commandments. So you could say, yeah, he represents someone who went to Mass every Sunday, but also someone who keeps the rules. Someone who really tries to keep the commandments of God. Now, have we heard someone say, look, I'm a committed Catholic. I go to Mass every Sunday, and I've done so for my entire life. And I've really tried to keep the commandments. We might say, wow, surely you must be really holy. But alas, such an assumption often lacks depth and spiritual maturity. Return to the gospel. When the older son hears or sees how the father treats the younger son, showering him with love and affection after he has committed so many sins, the state of the heart of the older brother is exposed. And what's very clear is that his heart is not free. His heart isn't really converted. His heart is bitter. His heart is bitter because all along he is secretly resented being obedient to the Father. So on hearing of the banquet, we're told that the older son is angry and he refuses to go in. It's such a human experience. Perhaps we can recollect upon moments in our own lives when we allowed an underlying spirit of bitterness to prevent us from going to that family function. Or there's an underlying bitterness, an unresolved anger that prevents us from getting more involved in parish activities or apostolic ventures. This gospel's for us. It's entirely possible for us to be secretly bitter about many things. I might even be bitter about having to come to Mass every Sunday, thinking, well, maybe I deserve to be treated better because, Lord, I'm one of the few that do come every week. Why aren't I being rewarded? Bitterness in the heart is something you and I have to be so attentive to. We should never ignore that bitterness. As I say, generally it reflects an unresolved anger, an unresolved frustration, which has to be healed. It needs to be healed. Otherwise, even if we keep all the rules, we will become agents of division. Bitterness divides a family. It divides a community, and I dare say it divides parishes. You see, the point of the gospel is to help us to realize that even if we are not someone who has run away, even if we're not someone that, got half the property, spent extortionately, lived licentiously, or committed adultery, that doesn't mean we don't need real conversion. Indeed, the elder son needs the exact experience of mercy that the younger son experienced. And so do we. Mercy is the key to spiritual maturity, because mercy is the only genuine solution to our bitterness. In my talk on Wednesday night, I invited the parishioners that were there to reflect on how many times have we received Holy Communion? How many times have we received the Lord's heart at Mass? How many times have I quite literally placed the heart of God, the transubstantiated body, blood, soul, and divinity, on my tongue? And yet I speak for myself here. I can only speak for myself. I'm still not a saint. One host, because it contains the heart of God, should be enough to transform us into saints. The fact that we are not tells us that there probably exists spiritual barriers that are stopping us from a deeper encounter with the Lord. On this aspect, on this score, what we really need to understand, what we really need to explain, is what are the barriers to receiving Jesus, receiving the heart of Jesus into our own hearts. Because just because someone knows what the Eucharist is, just because someone might believe everything the church teaches about what the Eucharist is, does not mean we have the grace to benefit from Holy Communion as we should. Self-knowledge, knowing what's really going on in here, makes a huge difference to how we receive the Lord. It makes a huge difference to whether we receive him authentically or inauthentically, whether we receive him with humility, bringing him to those places we'd rather not think about, or whether we receive him with pride. Think back to the parable. In the end, the only person that was going to miss out, on the great banquet, the only one that's going to miss out on rejoicing, is the elder son who, in theory, kept all the rules. And so, like the elder son, you and I can miss out on the inestimable joy, the insight, the richness of our faith, if we're not prepared to acknowledge our own vulnerabilities, our own weaknesses, our own insecurities, our own bitterness. The commitment to Sunday Mass is precisely with a long-term vision. We keep coming back to Mass not for an experience, not because we think we're going to get some spiritual high, but because we know that we need to be committed to this journey to receive the Lord truly and authentically into our own hearts, in the hope that, yes, one day we will become saints. The reason why the Lord commands that we honor the Sabbath, and why the church says it's such a serious obligation to come to Mass, is because it's the minimum. It's the minimal commitment to be able to even start to go on that journey. And our commitment to this journey is absolutely essential if we want something really wonderful to happen in our lives. So as we now prepare to receive the Lord, I invite you to join me in asking the Lord to help us to hand over to him all our unresolved bitterness, any anger, any spiritual resentment. Our hearts should rejoice. Our lives should be transformed. Our souls should be sanctified, because the Eucharist is the medicine of mercy, a mercy that brings the dead back to eternal life.